Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call roll just in time for Charles to be attendant. And we'll confirm a quorum before we're planning to go into closed session. So, Commissioner Montgomery? Here. Commissioner McCullough?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Dean?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Evans? Here. Commissioner Ortiz?
Here.
Commissioner Enos-Osorio? Absent. Okay. For the purposes of consulting with counsel, I move that Arlington County Law Enforcement Community Oversight Board convene a closed meeting for the purposes of consulting with counsel as authorized by the Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711.a.19 for briefings by law enforcement officials or counsel and for discussion of information subject to the exclusion in Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3705.2, Subdivision 14C under the Freedom of Information Act, Conflict of Interest Act, and other applicable laws concerning the board's duties and liabilities. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We will go into closed session and then call the meeting back to order.
So we come out of closed session before we come out of closed session.
I move that the members of the Arlington County Law Enforcement Community Oversight Board certify that at the just concluded session, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Chapter 37, Title 2.2 of the Code of Virginia, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do I have a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Wonderful, the motion passes. Okay. So our next agenda item is to approve the meeting minutes from May 10th. On the slide, just so we do. Does anyone have any known issues with meeting minutes? And then after that, we're going to do of the engagement. Did I miss this particular document?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we're going to pull it. Actually, no, just rest. Okay. Okay. Question.
In order, motion to.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The abstentions. Wonderful. Meeting minutes from May 10th are approved. We will move on to complaint intake mini training. So the purpose of this was we did want to just make sure that everyone is comfortable receiving complaints. I know we walked through sort of what the system is, but actually, I think we talked about getting access to the beta version so that folks could offline practice taking in a complaint.
Yeah, so we can use the test version for the purposes of our sample money and test version. The only caveat with that is you may have to register yourself for the test site if you have just factor out that.
Okay.
But since it would be the first time, so
Okay. So
Is that on the same page? Like,
yeah, so it's the same intake portal that the public would see, except it's an internal version.
So we won't create a bunch of
An
fake
actual-
complaints by registering them, but it gives us all direct access to the site so that we can, for example, practice that, you know, I
Right.
get an email from a community member, she wants to meet and talk, I can help them.
Yeah.
On board, everyone feels comfortable doing that.
So we just wanted to very quickly go through kind of like complete intake 101. That doing complaint intake should you happen to call your engagement event and someone asks you to walk them. So the goals again are to familiarize COB members with practices of conducting complaint intake. To review the functions of civil software and to familiarize COB members with tools that the IPA is set up to track complaints and share. So we'll cover complaint intake principles, utilizing the civil system, we'll review a sample complaint, and then we will I'll go over what the complaint tracking spreadsheet looks like in terms of format and how you can utilize it to find out information. And then we'll talk about debriefs and how. So just in general, we want to try to utilize these different practices when we are doing complaint. The best kind of practice here is to direct complainants to the civil website. That allows us to make sure that the information that is being relayed to us is uploaded into our system, that we're able to track the data, that we're able to easily share it, and that it's coming directly from that person, and we can certify the information. And also, Civil has a feature where you can change the language. So if you have people that have a language barrier or something like that, that would be the best way for them to be able to go in and implement or input that information. That being said, there are people who may not have access to the technology or prefer to talk to someone in person or over the phone or just various different things. So we want to still be able to address that need if people don't want to use Civil. But if someone does come to you with a physical intake form, which is a physical form that mirrors what someone would get on the Civil website, or they just send an email. So we've gotten complaints that have been forwarded to us from other agencies. Or someone might call over the phone or schedule an in-person meeting. What we would do with that is then take that information and input it into Civil ourselves, so that we always have some system that we go back to that has all of the information. We can assign it to people, and also it's important for tracking data. So when a member of the public goes to that kind of data interface portion of Civil, we're able to make sure that our numbers are consistent with the number of cases that we're investigating. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to input that information into Civil and what kind of things we want to upload to just kind of authenticate or just archive, the original documents that we received, so that anybody can go back in and make sure that everything we put into Civil mirrors exactly what we received, the voicemail that we upload or what have you. We'll get into that a little bit later. Another key thing is that you want to be detailed. So sometimes people will give you kind of very concise summaries of what happened because they think that you want, we want them to just get to the point. So you may have to, get that person to kind of unpack a little bit more and give you more details or explain things in a more detailed manner. So you just want to, thinking about getting as many details as possible. Obviously, being respectful is really important. Customer service is at the heart of this. Mindful that people's experiences might have been traumatic for them. So, just being mindful of that when we're talking about it and having those sensitivities. Being mindful of any sort of language or cultural differences. And then also just, informing them that this is a confidential process. If they wish to, submit the complaint anonymously, they're absolutely empowered to do so. And that, as we talked about, we're not going to be releasing their names or personally identifiable information. Then the last part is just explaining the process. So letting them know, I'm going to take this information, it's going to go into our system, and then we're going to share that information with ACPD. We're going to engage in a collaborative investigation. The IPA will produce a report, we'll produce a report, just letting them know kind of what happens after they receive this and what to expect, throughout the process. So then to go into Civil a little bit more to kind of make sure that we're all aware of what that process looks like. The community member would go to the Civil website, and then they have the option to select complaint, compliment, review request, or a recommendation. A review request is something that may have already been investigated administratively by ACPD. It has to still be within 2 years per the ordinance, but it's something that we could go back and review if it's already been done, so retroactively reviewing. And then recommendation is essentially just for them to give us recommendations on how we could do better as an oversight. Once the community member has input all of their information, then they'll go ahead and sign it and submit it, and then they'll get a case number, a tracking number, and they'll be able to go in and put that tracking number in at any point to get case updates. If they decide to create an account, they will automatically get email updates as their case goes investigation process.
Do they get a tracking number if they don't create an account?
Yes,
Okay.
they'll just have to go onto the civil website and manually input the tracking number.
It won't get email.
It won't get an
Okay, okay,
automatic
okay.
update. That's only different. They don't have to. do it.
Let me, if they're not able to enter, let's think about so many disabilities and stuff, and one of us has to enter, or you, whatever, how is it tracked to them then? I mean, they have to give you some kind of information, like an address, or how do they get up to it if they're not able to?
So if they're not able to do it, we would input it with them. We would input it with them over the phone if we're like talking to them in the moment. And then once we submit it, we would give them the tracking number. If someone left an anonymous voicemail or something of that nature, and we're just unable to give them that tracking information, then that just might be the case. But if we have some form of way to contact that person, even if they just leave their name and number at the end of the call, you can call them back or reach out to them and let them know. We put it into our system. Here's the tracking number. Follow the status.
I don't want to go down that. Just, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. So once that happens, we will download the complaint as well as any attachments that come along with it, and we will then share that information to the Office of Professional Responsibility. So they'll be able to look and see what was submitted and all of the facts. That information will then get uploaded into evidence.com, and you all will see it on your evidence.com account. If you haven't already logged in, that's what the submissions are that you see. You'll see on there both ones that come in through ACPD's portal as well as our portal. And you'll be able to distinguish the two because it'll have both written on the top.
I haven't noticed that. Have we gotten into our portal yet? Because I mean, I've looked at them all, but I haven't really, maybe I just missed it, but like, I'll look for where they come from.
On evidence.com, it doesn't say like from civil in any sort of like major identifying
but
way.
it's-
It's
Yeah.
embedded in the
there.
information.
Yeah. I'll show you a example of what our download.
Okay.
So again, for people who have given us their contact information, anonymous complaint, then we follow up with them if we need any additional. And then as I was talking about in the beginning, if someone does submit a complaint, or it could be a compliment or a complaint, so that's why I wrote submission, whether it's a complaint or a compliment, and it's given to us in some sort of written form or email or verbally. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is for us to put that information into civil, and then whatever other document you receive, email, voicemail, whatever it was, to attach that document to the civil so that we have a paper trail essentially, or something to go back to say that we input this information exactly as it was communicated to us, and that just helps us to ensure credibility. So I wanted to just do a practice complaint intake with you all, walking you through. Ian is going to serve as, or Mr. Lab, going to serve as our attend complainant, and I'm going to actually go onto the site in real time and input it into the system. Oh, okay. I think I set it up earlier. Let's just check. So, yeah.
Looks like it's- But I did just want to be mindful that the one in this room, instead of being on the ceiling, is over by the TV. So you need to just,
Okay. All right, so this is the website that you would see when you log on to the portal, and I'm gonna hit make a complaint. And then we'll start the form from there. So, so Lazarenko has set up an appointment to come to the office, and I'm sitting with now to file the complaint. So Mr. Lazarenko, thank you so much for coming in today
Thank
to
you.
share your experience that you had with ACP. I'm gonna just walk through the complaint form with you, and we're gonna input all of the information in here. We'll review it together at the end to just make sure that it accurately describes everything that you're relaying to me, and then submit it, and then we'll begin the investigation. Review what that is. So my first question to you, do you want to file this anonymously?
I'm fine with my information.
Just as a disclaimer, if someone says yes, that they do want to file anonymously, it's not going to require them to put their email address or any identifiable information. But since we said no, then email address is going to be required because that's how it will send the update. Or we'll be able to send updates to that.
So it won't, so those fields will be empty. Perfect.
And if the
So
person doesn't
you can't
have
make a
email
mistake.
address, then
Yeah, then in that case, you can just put no email at email.com or something
it'll
like that.
allow you to keep going.
It won't affect the actual.
Doesn't check. It's
Yeah.
valid email address.
Okay, so I've spelled your first name IAN, last name LAZRENO. What's your email address?
You can reach me probably at my, I, and then my last name. Arlington.us. Most likely the person filing the complaint won't be an Arlington County employee, but in this case.
Would you be able to provide us with a phone number to contact?
Sure thing, Mike. You can contact me on my cell, which is 410. 810.
And what about a street address?
Honestly, I don't know if I'm really comfortable sharing my address. Yeah,
Not required.
I just don't want anyone visiting.
All right, so here's where we're going to try to capture the incident that happened to you in written form. So if you can be as descriptive as possible, give me as many details as you can. I'm gonna just relay in text exactly what you're saying to me as you're saying it, okay?
Okay. So I was visiting a friend's house last Friday night. We were hanging out and everything, and I walked from his house and I was headed over to Metro afterwards. And as I was walking, I decided that I was going to take a shortcut through the park just to get to the Metro quicker. And I called my dad at the same time because I just wanted to talk to him just about family stuff. My dad's from Russia, so we were speaking Russian on the phone. And as I'm walking, I was approached by two officers from ACPD. They asked me to stop, and they asked me what I was doing, why I was in the park. And because I was speaking on the phone, I felt like they were just really concerned, or that they were, I don't know, treating me differently because I wasn't speaking English. I think one of them made some snide comment about lying or something like that, and it just made me really angry and really uncomfortable. They asked me, if they could search my bag and everything, and I just didn't understand why they were asking me to do that when I was just trying to walk to the Metro, and they made me feel really uncomfortable and like they were targeting me specifically for.
Officers asked to search your bag, and what was if there was a reason that was articulated?
They just asked me why I was walking, park so late and what I had in my bag and everything. I was maybe a little, I had a couple beers or something like that, so maybe I was stumbling a little bit, but I wasn't. I just don't know why they, wanted to look at my.
So you believe that the reason why they asked to search your bag was because you were walking around late at night in the park and because you were stumbling?
Maybe, I don't know really why that would be a reason that would be suspicious or anything. Trying to get to Metro before.
Do you recall, you said it was two officers that you were interacting
Yeah,
with,
two
right?
officers, yeah.
Do you recall which officer, first of all, do you know their names?
I think one of their last names was Smith, I think one of them said,
Okay,
but I didn't get their name or their badge.
okay, that's no problem. So let's call one Officer 1 and then the other one Officer Smith. We
Okay.
think that it's Officer Smith. So which officer was it that you believe made the snipe?
My back was turned, but I think it was Officer Smith because it sounded like a man, and the other officer was a.
I believe Officer Smith was a male.
Believe so, yeah. I was moving kind of fast too, so I didn't really look until afterwards.
Okay. And then which officer asked to search your bag?
I don't know, actually, I don't remember.
And then after your bag was searched, what happened next?
Well, I didn't let them search my bag, but they kind of insisted. I asked, if they really needed to, and then they said no, and then I
Find the search and asked them if they really needed the bag. And they responded, no, they did not. And at that point is when the
that's right, yeah, I ran back to Metro. Yeah, well, I kind of ran away a little. I didn't want to miss Metro.
was at the end of the interaction. Is there anything else that you want to add to that in terms of
It just
the
made me,
experience?
just made me feel kind of weird, like I was being seen.
And when you say that you felt that you were being singled out, are you referring to comments and also bag or any?
Yeah, just kind of the comments, just because I was like talking to my dad and just me. But I also was the only person. May not have anything.
Are there any sort of additional documents or any sort of information related to this that you want to include along?
What kind of documents?
Anything that you may have received any sort of correspondence from the police department, or if there was any sort of report generated that you're aware of, or anything that you think it might be relevant to helping investigate this?
I did text.
You recorded it, for example.
Well, it was the phone conversation. I hung up like midway through, but I texted my friend right afterwards and told him what happened. So I texted messages. And I did send an email to. I couldn't find the internal affairs email, but I found the media email for the police department, so I emailed them. But I don't know if they got the email.
I'll give you my card after we finish up today, and if you would like to email over to me any of those written documents and have them attached to the submission, I'd be happy to upload those into.
Okay.
This is where you all would upload the files right here where it says upload document. That could be a recording, it could be witness statements, or if they've already brought this to the attention of anyone at ACP, or let's say it was an email that they sent to someone, that's where we would attach the file. Or if you're putting this in for someone as a result of call or email, as we talked
But where would we, I mean, how would we upload a telephone?
you could, if it was recorded, then you could download it as like an MP3 or an MP4 and then upload it like as an audio file.
Yeah,
We've had a voicemail forwarded to us.
yeah, I know there were some voicemails in the stuff, but I mean, so they would have called, just, I mean, like, if they didn't, unless they knew my number, how would we do that? Like,
So let's say somebody calls you and they say, I want to give you a complaint over the phone. You could ask their consent to record the conversation. information if you wanted to, and just say, is it okay if I record this for record keeping purposes, sure that I input your information correctly? You record it on your, laptop or your phone or whatever, the iPad that you're using, and then you would need to upload it into the system that way. But like, for example, iPhones have voice memo apps and that way. In that instance, if you feel like you don't have the technology to do that, you could direct them to me or Ian as well. And we
I
could
probably
do
have
that.
the technology. I don't know. To do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could always direct them to someone else who feels more comfortable utilizing that technology. It's best practice to have it recorded if the person is okay with them. That way we just have something again for you to even go back to the reference
Oh, yeah.
or to authenticate.
So if someone calls me on my cell phone, I can just during the call start to record.
You have to ask.
Yeah.
Not in Virginia.
Don't just,
No, actually,
technically, Virginia, you don't have
I
to,
know,
but I
but
think
I
it
don't
would be
think
good practice.
Right,
So
right.
you don't want to,
Right.
record someone without their consent.
Yeah.
But
Another
Virginia is a one-party
It's a one-party consent.
consent.
Yeah.
But that's why we would direct people verbally to use, like, as
Right.
the first means. And if we were to hear it, I would suggest email to the COB email address, call our office phone, or last resort. And, but this is ideal to website.
So, especially in instances where someone does not have the officer's badge number, which is most, even in those cases, it's always good to get a location, but especially in cases where the person doesn't have the identifiable information, how we're gonna try to figure out what officers were involved by figuring out the date and time and the location. So going back to Mr. Lazarenko, could you tell me where this incident you were near the metro?
Yeah, I was near East Falls Church Metro. I don't know which park it was, so I didn't really, I'm not too familiar with that part of town. I don't know.
Do you remember when this took place?
It was right before Metro closed, so it was after 12:30, I think. Running to get
12:30
in the
after
morning.
midnight.
Yeah,
And do you remember what date it was?
yeah, it was the 18th, Friday.
18?
I'm sorry, June 16th.
So one officer is unknown, and then the other officer you said you think was possibly named Officer Smith. Right? And then you think that Officer Smith was a male officer, is that correct?
Yeah, he a white male, I believe, but it was pretty dark, and I was kind of looking at my. So, no, he was a male.
Okay. Male officer, potentially.
It was a
Okay. Potentially white, and then can you describe the person's like build or stature a little bit?
They were taller than I am, so probably like 6'6", 6'7".
Eye color, hair color, anything of those?
I didn't think you said all.
What about build? Average? And then the second officer, you said was possibly a female officer,
I
correct?
think so, yeah.
Okay.
And that's all I really got.
Okay, no other description. Were there any other people who potentially witnessed the incident? I know you said that you were on the phone with your dad.
Yeah, I don't know if he heard anything though. In my knowledge, I don't think anyone.
If for any reason that you become aware of other people who may have potentially, just feel free to give us a call and we can supplement that. And Mr. Eisenberg, I just was curious to know how you heard about us and how you were directed to our office.
Yeah, I was when I was Googling around for ACPD, saw a news article about this. website, so I called.
Okay. What would you say best describes you? Are you a city resident, local visitor, police department, or any sort of other city or government employee?
For this purpose, I'll just say I was a visitor. My emails in Arlington. More than likely.
Would you be able to?
Does it really be needed?
That's just more so for our internal track. Yeah. This whole list of questions here is just for us to be able to kind of identify what sectors of the community our complaints are coming from. So we might want to look at it by age, gender, race, or ethnicity, sexual orientation. But again, all of this is get that information.
Maybe later. I'll give it later.
Sure, that's no problem.
Then,
And the last question I have for you is whether English is your primary language. Yes. In the event that someone says no and they need language assistance, that's when we would try to figure that out. Just to help. So I just want to make sure that we go through this form and that everything is correct with you. And then once we do all of that, we will go to the acknowledgement page and submit the form and acknowledge that everything is correct. So this, I'm not going to do it right now just for the sake of time, but this is where you would hit the back button and go back to the beginning and just go through the form with the person to make sure that everything is accurate. And then Mr. Letzer throws everything in the form accurate as you described it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
What if I remember something later though? Can I change this or?
Absolutely. We can always supplement with additional case notes, additional attachments, anything of that nature. We can go back as long as the investigation is still pending.
Okay.
So now, having heard you acknowledge that everything in this form is accurate to the best of your knowledge, I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And this is going to be your tracking number right here.
Okay.
Write it down together. I'm happy to email it to you. You can also create an account, and that will give you automatic email updates on the status of your case. But at any point you want to see what the status of your case is, tracking number.
Okay.
After this is submitted to Civil, we will download it and share it with our colleagues at ACPD who we collaborate on these investigations with. We will be collaborating with them on this investigation all the way through the process. Once I have completed the collaborative investigation process, I will produce a report and I will share that report along with the evidence that we've collected along the investigation as well as ACPD report. The reports are completely independent of one another, so we may not necessarily have reached the same findings. And then that would go to the Community Oversight Board. They'll discuss it and confer amongst themselves and create a separately independent board as well. And so if you have any questions along the way or want to know kind of what the status is of it, feel free to use this tracking number or reach out to our office directly and we can know where we're at.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
See.
All right.
Any questions about how to utilize the form?
My only question was if they were to, like, you finish all that process and then they send you something, can you log back into Civil and upload it? Okay.
It just wouldn't be through that form. It would be sort of an addendum.
Right.
But we're able to add case notes or any attachments, add or subtract officer information. You know, the investigation leads to new.
Yeah, or sometimes if we need to call that person back because we need some additional information from them, then we could do that and take those notes from that call and then send that addendum over to a form when we download all of this.
So obviously you were able to ask more questions. But if they were filling it out themselves, I'm not sure a lot of people would say add race in there because there wasn't a block for race. But you were asking, so there was like one block where you put like 3 things in. Do you think people will automatically put those things in?
The description?
Yeah,
For the
I'm not sure. What, I'm sorry.
For the officers or for themselves?
For the officers, well, yeah, for the officers.
They may, we leave it open so that they can put any sort of description that they can recollect. But even, somebody putting it in there doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, right? Like
Sure.
they're making a guess as to what that person's race is or what have you. What we're trying to do is just capture as much information as possible about where it happened, when it happened, what officers were involved, so that we can assist ACPD or give them as much information as possible to identify what officers were involved. But sometimes just the facts of the underlying incident can help us figure out what officers were involved. Like, so then there's other ways that you can go in and see, like, this incident occurred, and you can look at what incidents, what similar factual incidents occurred in a particular area or on a particular date. There are multiple ways to try to like narrow it down, but
Sure.
the more information obviously we have, the better. So that we can figure it out easily.
I think nowadays, a lot of people, unless it asks for it, I'm not sure a lot of people. Very careful. It's good.
And the way that we're tracking complaints in terms of like the public facing data is more so like if you want to look at complaints by race, it's going to be the race of the complainant if they decide to input that, not necessarily focus on the officer for purposes of data. Because again, that person making a guess about the race is not necessarily accurate. They may not actually correctly identify that. That would be something that if we wanted to factor into this, I think the more accurate way to get that information.
I had a quick question.
Go ahead, Martin.
So, if someone loses their tracking ID for a case, is there a way for them to like retrieve it or ask for like what it might be?
Yeah, if they could email us and then we, they could reach out to us in any way and they would we'd be able to provide it to them.
Call.
Yeah, call, email, come in person.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions about this? So move forward with the rest of the PowerPoint. So we are trying to create an efficient system to like a one-stop shop where you all can go and see kind of what the status is of these investigations, whether they come in through ACP or through civil. What we came up with as an interim solution is using an Excel spreadsheet. We're hoping to advance this technology over time, especially because it requires us to manually enter this information. But for purposes of what we need to accomplish with this right now, we'll send out the spreadsheet or share it with you all, but I just wanted to walk through kind of what this information showcases. So it'll tell you what type of submission, where it came from, whether it was civil or ACP, and then the civil ID number that's associated with it, or the OPR case number that's associated with it. And that would be when you go onto evidence.com and you see the inventory of all of the evidence that you have, that's how you could identify what evidence is in what case. This will also tell you when the complaint was, and then there's an automatic tracker to let you know how long it's that 60-day timeline. It'll also include the complainant's name, the status of the investigation, and then you'll be able to see what 2 COB members have been involved in that particular investigation, as well as when their briefs have occurred. So there'll be one at onset of the investigation. There'll also be a link for you right here where you can click on, and hopefully the technology works the way I think it works. You'll just be able to click on the link and it'll that direct piece of it. And then any notes here would be my notes to you all about like where it was submitted from, or it might be, some notes to how we're looking at handling the case, or just anything that I think is important for you all to know about this particular investigation. And the Excel spreadsheet will show all of these, and then there's a separate page on the Excel spreadsheet that you'll notice at the bottom that says non-investigative files. So that's where we'll store information for submissions that come in that we may, that don't necessarily fall within the purview of our investigation. Like some of the ones that we were talking about earlier related to tracking reporting. So you'll see that information in there, and then you'll see in the notes section an explanation as to why we're not going to further investigate it, and there may be a closing memo or something like that associated with it, and that will be.
Where's that going to be available?
We'll put it in the Teams folder, but I'll also send a link out to you all in your email. Access it'll be one file that will just be constantly updated. So it won't be one file per investigation. And then that way you'll be able to see at any time how many investigations we have. Hopefully that just makes it a little bit easier to be able to see everything in one place and have to go on evidence.com and figure out like the pieces of the puzzle. And again, we're developing this technology, so if you have suggestions along the way about how it can be more useful, we definitely welcome that. So again, the debrief, just to recap, our opportunity to have open discussion between yourself and COB members. We broke it down into groups of 2, obviously for public requirements. So each investigation will have 2 COB members that are assigned to the case that I would have you see it. That being said, if at any time you all have questions about a particular phone, email, answer the questions, it would just be my main point of contact. So again, we'll have one at the onset and one at the conclusion, unless it's a particularly complicated investigation. More debrief, so we'll at least have those 2 minimum. The initial debrief, that will be an opportunity to just kind of share the preliminary facts, thoughts about what the investigation should look like, what are the potential allegations that we should be looking into, potential witnesses, and for you all to ask any questions or direct me on things that you are particularly interested in paying attention to in the investigation, or answers or questions and things like that that you want answered through the course of the investigation. And then during the closing debrief, I will share updates about what information was discovered during the investigation, talk about highlights from the interviews, different things like that, what the final allegations were that were investigated, and what some kind of preliminary thoughts are around the disposition for those allegations. So they're going to be sustained, not sustained. And also, I'll be able to give you my personal thoughts or reflection on how I think the investigation, what I'm going to write in my report in terms of what my findings might be. Obviously, at that point, you can utilize the time to ask any questions or any sort of get any sort of additional details that you feel will be important to you while making your own independent findings and to begin developing a discussion guide as to what issues you all want to focus on to discuss the case. And also, if you think that is a case that you need some legal counsel on, or any sort of additional like protections or anything like that, that would be a good place to kind of bring those up so I can do whatever needs to happen administratively after research. Complete the investigation. So scheduling the debrief is going to be an important aspect of this, right? So we have to make sure that we have efficient ways to do that. And I'm going to kick it over to Ian to talk about a scheduling tool that to hopefully make it easy for you all to schedule those once you've been assigned to it.
Yeah, so this is actually through Microsoft, and Mummy, if you want to click on the thing there. So I sent this out to you all a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, we haven't scheduled anything yet, but this is just through, it's almost like a Microsoft Forms, but it,
Yeah, I'm going to
essentially this just links up. It just links to our Outlook calendars. Mine is in there right now, but really you would only be scheduling it with Mummy. So based upon her availability, it would take you to this page here. You would select Mummy as the staff, and it may be that it already defaults to Mummy, and then you would just select the date and the time based upon her. So let's say you wanted to schedule it for tomorrow at 9 a.m. You would select that date and time. You would add your name, email, etc. there, and then you just hit book, and it would send her a calendar invite, send you a calendar invite at that time and date. So pretty straightforward, relatively simple. But if you have any questions, just email or call me.
We're doing the debriefs separately, we're not doing it as a pair.
Doing it as a pair, that's the next thing I was going to say. So does it allow them to select multiple times or just one?
I believe you can select multiple times, so that I'll enable that feature.
Yeah, or if you want to coordinate with the person that you're assigned to that investigation with and come up with a time that works well for the 2 of you, and one person can book it for both of you. But otherwise, I can look at it and see what dates you are jointly available and onto the calendar. And then you'll just hit them. Any questions about utilizing scheduling? Again, we're hoping that these tools are going to make it easier and more efficient, but if you find that that's not the case, at any point, just let us know if there's something else that you think will work better for you. Not be hurt. We just want to make sure that this is. All right, so we have talked about the scheduling tool. Okay, the last thing is just looking forward about some things that we have on the horizon. We are working with our comm staff here at the county to set up a kiosk essentially tool on iPads that we'll be able to take to community engagement events, and you'll be able to do on-site complaint intake if the need arises. So we'll probably have maybe like at least one or two with us when we go to community engagement events. We're also looking at setting up countywide intake sites. For example, the library. We'll be setting up our informational flyers at different places around the county so people can have contact information related to how to file a complaint or how to reach our office. But there may also be instances where it would be helpful to have people who are on staff at that particular location to make it as accessible as possible. That would be able to walk people through the same intake process that we shared with you all earlier. And we would also be looking to try to do that at different community centers and places that are maybe not even associated. And providing those same intake materials and training to whoever those liaisons are at those different centers. That would just, again, make it as easy as possible for people to get the complaint intake or compliments or whatever it is that they want to submit and be able to be in the comfort of their community or to get the emotional or language assistance or whatever it is that they need to be able to complete that process. And then finally, we are developing a training with the Center for Policing Equity that is going to cover generally policy and data analysis, but also how the kind of overlap here is that as we are doing these complaint intakes, we want to be thinking about capturing the information in a way that is going to lead to more thorough, expansive policy and data analysis and inform the process. So we'll talk a little bit about how that kind of overlaps to just kind of expand our skill set when it comes to and allow for better policy and data. And that's it. Any questions?
Again, for the community center liaisons, I'm sorry if you just didn't hear. Do you mean just the county community centers or community centers of large red out some of our?
Yeah, no, at large.
Okay,
Not so
yeah.
we're looking at county specific
Right.
areas and then also non-county related.
Right.
So if people feel more comfortable going to something that's completely independent of the county, then that would be available to them. It may just be their regular community center that they just go to for other needs. So just trying to make sure that we have as far of a reach.
Good job. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
And if you all have any suggestions about, places that you think would be helpful to ordered the little displayers that I've ordered even extra ones kind of as a result of the conversation we were having because we have printed out those materials and we can actually place them at different places around the county as well and just leave them there for people to just access that information.
Those are very good materials, by the way.
Thank
And then the display materials you have too. It was very well written. I think they're great for people have, at the state that can know, there's a lot. You have to get to know us, but you have to know what we do and all that. And I think the materials, they are now really say that. It's very nice.
Thank
really
you. I
display.
appreciate that.
Mhm.
I also think that it might be good practice for us to develop those materials in different languages should the need arise. I know, counterpart agencies and areas where there is a very strong presence of a second language, be it Spanish or what have you, they automatically translate all of their documents online and in person to Spanish.
Yeah.
I don't know that we necessarily have a specific language that is, a prevalent need, or it might be several languages I think in this area, but that's something that I would definitely be open to as well as translating those documents for various community centers.
That's something that spend the money on before
Yeah, we do it before the 30th.
they. Yeah, I don't know how easy or hard it is.
But I mean, if not, we have a budget for next year. So it's just that we didn't utilize that much of our budget upcoming year doing training. So I tried to purchase of many of our like kind of promotional materials or things
Yeah,
that we'll use
good.
for community engagement events.
Community engagement recap quickly. So we met briefly virtually on Monday, whatever last Monday was. And I,
Tuesday.
Monday.
Was it Monday? Oh, sorry.
So some of the qualitative discussion that we had was about making sure that our programming is informal and accessible, sort of to Charles' comment about, making sure we don't always be at events where folks might feel like there's an organizational affiliation or requirement, combination of recurring and non-recurring events, making an effort to align with existing events to minimize the sort of burden of participating in broader Arlington County things, and a mix of things like, for example, farmers markets where we'll reach a broader audience versus more like customized events at community centers, and trying to convene a mix of publicly and virtually accessible opportunities so that folks, different schedules or technology access or needs are able to talk with us. So we circulated amongst the smaller group, and I'll send it out after this meeting, sort of a draft outreach plan that just talks about those sort of priorities, and then also has a list of sort of designated identified community stakeholders from the list of Arlington affiliates. But primarily tonight, what I want to do is get input from anyone who wasn't able to join us that night, and then talk about having a first event. We had talked in the meeting about doing something in a community center in Green Valley as sort of an ability to go. And we talked about having a mix of events that are informative, engaging, and then what was the third one? Charles, help me.
Educational. No, important to be educational, engaging, and
I don't remember.
it was about telling them what we do, and who we are, like an introduction. It was about being
Making sure
able
we hear
to-
from them.
right, and then being able to take in complaints as well.
Maybe it was
I
that.
think it
Maybe
was
it was
engagement and
listen
listening.
and
Right.
then yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Mhm.
So and that a lot of our events will be sort of a hybrid of, we'll present some information and then convene an opportunity to listen. So the Green Valley Civic Association meets the first Monday of every month, and their next one is Monday, July 3rd, which is not listed on their website, probably because that's unlikely they're going to hold it then. So our opportunity around their sort of organized, we could request to go to their civic association meeting, which would be on a Monday night, or we could try to rent a community center and sort of market it around that. So their next scheduled meeting after July would be August 7th, and we could go the Saturday before or after, or try to join them at that meeting. So does that seem like a good sort of kickoff event to folks? And do we have other ideas or inputs, preferences about dates?
So,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, I said my only input would be to get the word out early. Just so I wouldn't hand jam it into July just because people may not get the word. So let them know what the point is. Here's going to be in August, and that way people can plan and plan around that. That'd be my only input. I wasn't in the meeting. But timing sense, I think people want to know, and then they're going to maybe adjust. They might adjust their schedules to be there. But if it's July, it's just too far of a term.
Does anyone have any preference about reaching out to see if they're interested in having us come to their civic association meeting versus trying to host our own event at, there isn't a Green Valley Community Center, sorry, I misspoke. They hold their meetings at Drew Elementary. So, meeting in the location where their civic association meets, could create some accessibility. Saturday mornings, the different scheduling option than Monday nights, both for us and for them. So, fun.
And I kind of like going to the meeting that they're having.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
You go to their turf.
yeah,
Great.
I think
Not
that's
to
a better
ours.
way to do.
Where they are,
Meet
literally.
them where they're at.
Okay. So then what I'll do is coordinate with Ian and Mummy to reach out and see if they're interested in having us come. If not, then maybe we want to initialize a different event.
I mean,
It may not be August, it may be September.
Yeah.
My recollection, a lot of civic associations take off August.
So,
Right, but because they probably won't have a July meeting, or, well, no, they probably just keep the July meeting to sometime later in the month. So a lot do take off August, so if you don't get August, I mean, maybe hopefully, but if you don't, then September, I think it's still good. I mean, there's not really a bad pipeline on it. We may do something else also before then, but I would definitely try to find a date that works for their
Yeah.
civic association. I
Okay.
wouldn't, yeah, if it doesn't work for all of us, I just wouldn't want to say, okay, well, we want something else. We're not
So we couldn't really think of it as a kickoff.
Right.
Pushing it to September.
yeah, I think.
Right,
we
it would
do
just be
something.
another
Right.
thing, and we find what the kickoff, right,
Yeah,
would be,
yeah.
but yeah.
We'll initiate that outreach and circulate an email amongst the group, just sort of what we find out coming back. Aside from that, we had also discussed, for example, farmers markets and the county fair. Are there any other sort of major events that we want to put on our roster as we look to start planning these in detail?
Well, I just bring up this, but I'm not plugged into the Arlington Hispanic community, so I don't know where. I mean, I always say churches, but I don't know exactly where. However, there's a pretty strong Hispanic liaison in ACPD. They may have a really good sense of what a good location would be. I don't know if they have.
Santa
community
Maria
centers, churches.
is an Episcopal church that my church is affiliated with, and it's very, like, we do a second language thing there, and it's a big congregation. It's on, I don't remember the street it's on, but I mean, I could reach out and see if they were interested in, hosting something or.
Yeah, sure, but like I said, I know there's officers in ACPD who are
Liaisons.
specific liaisons, and they probably, not that that's not also a good idea, but they almost certainly know. I just want to be sure we don't miss them. And other large groups, I don't know, like, probably have a large population that was down, be sure we capture.
Okay.
But certainly the Spanish speaking.
Between now and July, why don't we take those two as an action item, reaching out to a Green Valley Civic Association, seeing if Santa Maria is interested in having us come for an event, and just generally maybe taking it as a third action amongst ourselves to think about who else we interface with that, we've probably told or may not have told as much about our involvement in the COB, but trying to use our own sort of personal network to gauge where there may be community interest in hearing more about what the COB is tasked with doing, how we're going about it, and whether or not there's any additional input.
If we do an event with at Santa Maria, I mean, we have someone who can speak Spanish.
I speak Spanish.
Okay.
Gary speaks Spanish. There's a bunch
Okay,
of
all
us
right,
who
well,
speak Spanish.
super.
Me too.
We have enough, but
Okay,
I
we have
mean, if you think we need an actual translator or somebody who could, that.
I mean, their
translate
services
that,
are in
but I don't
Spanish,
know.
like, so I don't know. I'll follow up.
I think we
I
can,
speak Spanish.
we can mobilize the Spanish-speaking contingent to
Okay.
go and
That's great, yeah.
I would feel comfortable. Okay. The next thing I wanted to address was the July meeting schedule. It is for July 12th. Does anyone have a known conflict?
Shoot.
I'm meant to be traveling for work.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town.
I don't know that we have anything yet on the agenda that would require us to have a quorum. So I could probably participate virtually.
Do we have a virtual option?
Well, we could do an all virtual option, but I just wanted to get a sense of whether we have any conflict. I don't know that we need to plan for an all virtual option unless we have a quorum need that, like, if we needed to go through an investigation or whatever. But so I just wanted to get a sense if anyone has no conflicts for.
So,
July 12th.
yeah, I do.
Okay, so you and I could probably attend, or as of right now, we could both attend virtually and not create a
Okay,
forum
okay,
or voting problem.
okay.
But just let me know if any other conflicts arise and we could make that an all virtual meeting or not. We'll try to get that finalized in the next. That's the full agenda, except for open discussion. Is there anything anyone else would like to raise for group discussion?
Yes, just quick reminder,
Oh, for the NACOL annual conference, is there anyone else interested in going in November to the annual NACOL conference? The budget request is pending, so we don't actually have approval, but while we get that request through the works. Lisa has expressed interest in going. I would like to go, but I might have a conflict.
I'm just generally speaking what I kind of talked about with Gary. But I think that it's really great and very valuable for you all to have training opportunities outside of our county training or meeting. Understanding that you all are volunteers, obviously it's not mandatory at all, but if there are opportunities that come across that you're interested in, like definitely let me know so that we can figure out administratively like budget and how many people we can afford to send and what sort of things we need to do finance related to make that happen. In different conferences might be different considerations. Like NACOL is a particularly expensive one. So you're looking at somewhere around $2,500, maybe $3,000 including premium, including flights, hotel, food, the registration fee, and so on. So for that conference, I would say that it probably would be prudent for us to spend. It also may be based on like where we're at in what we have left in our budget in that particular year, right? But for that particular conference, I think it would be prudent to only plan on maybe like 1 or 2 people going, and then reporting back to the group. But the sooner I know, the better, because like right now we're getting ready to close out the 2020 cycle. If I knew like before the end of this month that there are 2 people that want to go, there are some things I could pay for on the front end that would alleviate us it being completely taken out of the next year's budget. I could pay for your registration fees, flight, that sort of thing on the front end. And then some things are just gonna have to come out of next year's budget, like your and your charge for until they actually. But also generally speaking, we talked about maybe having a kind of budget committee that on the front end can give insight as to how many community engagement events we do a year, how much training outside of our county training we can be kind of planning for how much money we allocate to it, and then working around that. So that would be something that we think about, and then also like sometimes NACOL has like free trainings or webinars and that sort of thing. So I try to pass that information to you. You all have free training opportunities possible, but there might be things that you all come across that I don't. So if there are things that you all find that you're interested in, definitely pass that information. I will do my best to make sure that we can provide those resources.
So we have a training committee, right?
Well,
We're meant
that was
to.
Jim and Julie, but I think that training was initially like thinking about what the Arlington, like the required training.
Yeah, required, but I think.
Expand that
Well,
training.
it's really the transition.
Yeah.
It's really a transition, so you weren't at the meeting, so I took over, no, I didn't take over, but anyway, so this year, I'm so glad you sent that thing at NACOL because we have money right now, so we didn't plan, but that's the right thing to do, but I think what Mummy and I agree is that we really need to think, because NACOL probably may not be the only thing. That might be a good one to go to, but we don't know what we don't know, right? So I think this committee for next year's budget would be trying to make recommendations on, hey, NACOL, we did that last year, 2 thumbs up, we'll do it again. Or we found out about some other things that, and we can all be searching this ourselves, right? As far as what are things to consider, and then Mommy can make a budget. So this year, we don't have a budget, but we're gonna go, right? We have the money and we have a date to spend it by. That's how the military works. You just spend the money, even if you don't need to spend it, you spend it.
Budget brought that up.
But we do need to plan, because I think there's other things, I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
There's some that are virtual too.
Yeah.
NACOL is virtual.
Martine.
So, what I wanted to ask is, do you have to be at the conference for like all 5 days if you were to go?
Ideally, yes, because we're paying for the full registration fee.
Mhm.
But there may be, certain circumstances that it could be offset by the cost of lodging or something like that. So, but ideally, if you're going down there, like, we'd want you to try to spend this, to get to take in the full
The
experience,
networking.
and get the full advantage of the training.
I think if you had a conflict in the front or back end, and so you can only go for 4 days, that would still be worth sending somebody for the budget money. But fine.
Who said they're going?
Julie's-
Well, I.
She's
yeah,
volunteering.
I'd like to go.
What is this?
November,
I have a conflict, but I'm trying to resolve it.
I have a
four.
conflict.
You
I
really
can't
should go. You really should
November 12th through
go. The
16th.
work thing,
In
you can't
Chicago.
go.
Week before
Chicago?
In Chicago. Oh,
You
No.
can't get along.
I'm joking.
So if it's right, I would just have a conversation.
I think it's possible that I can go. So
Well,
I would.
got a cap for this. The other conferences do not have. But generally speaking, like, by the time you add like flights, I think it should probably be a practice that we can act unless there are certain things that just because I know that this year was an anomaly in terms of leftover budget. Future years, I think it's a lot tighter. We're gonna be asking for.
The other anomaly about this year is that, like, as we get started, we will have just submitted our report and be brainstorming what we want our priorities to be. So if more than 2 people wanted to go this year and we're able to, I think it would be valuable, recognizing that we, for next year, probably don't want to do ad hoc approvals. We probably want to have a plan and a list. So, Gary, what I was going to say is that brings me to, as far as subcommittees go, we do have a report due in September and a bunch of investigations to get through between now and then. So we need to make a plan for compiling our report and also for a policy review. But there are a couple of items that we've come across sort of in the course of this that we've raised as we may want to do some in-depth, review. I think the findings of our interns look into photo enforcement and other just sort of related adjacent policies. Is something we want to make space for in our calendar. So be thinking for the next meeting, and we'll look to schedule our sort of subcommittee meetings between now and the end of September. I think training will be important, but probably not a priority amongst those in the queue. Like, we want to have our training, we want to review our training curriculum before the end of the year, but not necessarily before September.
Yeah, that's a good segue. So the other, we had our Prop 3 kind of huddle. You weren't there, but we talked about ride-alongs next year and the recommendations. I mean, you want to talk about that just a little bit, or you want to save that? This was the requirement to do ride-alongs. And my suggestion was that I think it's still good that we do ride-alongs. For networking, getting to know people. I just don't think it needs to be 4 hours. So the initial training, I think, should be the full money. But for the, recurrency thing, my suggestion, I think you were going to push that up, right? Whether they were going to accept that was to keep it, minimum of 2 or around 2, just so we can go in, meet the new officer. How's it going? Understand what we're doing. We're kind of getting with, but I don't think we need to. Yeah, that was my suggestion. I don't think I need 3 4-hour ride-alongs for my recurrency. But I do think there's value in making contact with officers and helping them know we get to know people, meet people, because we're only in year 2. So
because that's in the ordinance, let's make sure we slate that for our training sort of review, because it is part of our MOU that the training curriculum will be something we review and deal with.
But weren't you gonna talk to somebody about that?
Yeah, so I spoke with Deputy Chief Chamberlain about this ride-along in general. Just checking with her like very briefly earlier today. She's gonna circle back with me to talk about it, next week, because we're trying to figure out who the best contact person is for the ride-alongs now. And also when we should do them. There is currently, some field training officers that are like transitioning on, and we wanna make sure that's like the best timing, for us to start redoing these, annual requirements for ride-alongs. And then also we can talk about what the format should be. Like, the ordinance just requires currently that there are 3 ride-alongs, but it doesn't necessarily specify, the time or the shift. I think that it was very valuable, by and large, from everybody's experiences that they shared with me, to have the opportunity to do 3 different shifts, because they got a chance to kind of see the differences. If that continues to be the case, then great. If that's not the case, then great. If the number of hours could be adjusted to make it where it's only 2 hours that are mandatory, but you're welcome to stay for the whole 4 hours or what have you, then that's something that we could talk about. But I'd like to do that in collaboration with AT, figure out what would work best for them as well, and what they think would be the most valuable training experience. So more on that later. I was going to report back out to that after having a follow-up.
After the follow-up.
Anything else?
We received a notice from the county about new training for staff. How do you want us to, handle that?
Race one.
Mhm.
Are you all?
Should be in the learning center.
Yeah. It raises a good question though, because I'm not sure that it was anticipated that you all will have to continuously keep up with us. I think it's implied, but I can just confirm that to make sure that that continues to be a requirement for you all.
Can we get access? Sometimes I'm local and getting onto the network sometimes is a hit or miss. So or even if like before our meetings, if I can go in, do, check the emails,
Yeah.
do trainings or whatever. Can we have access to that?
I think that we could figure out a way to do that. You have to have a county badge to slide into most of the rooms, but if we alerted security or reserved that room ahead of time, let's just say it was spontaneous when we did it, we could probably let security know. We could probably slide in a badge or whatever. But I just need to confer with security to figure out the most efficient. Of course, if you know in advance, we can book the room. But if it's a spontaneous.
Library may also have computers.
Or we could just do, okay.
Yeah.
But I
If you wanted a private space, you could probably figure that. There's plenty of spaces. I just need to figure out your access. Badge.
Okay.
Having addressed all the agenda items, I declare the meeting adjourned, and we will see you all in July.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Martine.
Martine.
Right?